After purchasing my very first property in 2020 to scaling to now well over $2 million in real estate, these are the 7 things I wish I knew before I got started in real estate investing. The first lesson, talk less, do more. I would say from the period of 2018 to when I purchased my very first rental in 2020, I was all over the real estate podcasts, the books, the forums, just reading and absorbing and thinking about how I could do. But what I wasn't doing was actually doing. See, during that period, I realized that if I want to get out of this corporate rat race, if I want to retire early, I need to buy real estate. But yet the entire time I was having doubts and trying to optimize the plans and trying to figure out how exactly I can calculate it to work. But what I should have been doing is going out and talking to real estate agents, talking to real estate investors, going and taking a look and touring properties instead of just sitting on my computer and scrolling or driving around listening to podcasts. Thankfully, my now fiance Viv, when she moved over here from Australia in 2019, I was pitching her the whole idea of, oh, we gotta get started real estate investing. And she pretty much said, okay, well, why don't we? But my point here is analysis paralysis is very real, even if you think you're not someone who's gonna be susceptible to it. And so you should always have a bias towards action. Even if you think you might just be slightly interested, go and take some action to get that ball going. And as a quick note to that, you do not need anything formalized set up before you buy your first property. What I mean by that is you're gonna see all the gurus online telling you, you have to have this corporate structure and holding structure and LLC. No. It's all BS, trust me. None of that is actually relevant. In terms of buying your very first property, do it in your name as an owner-occupant. Why? Because you're gonna get the best loan terms and the best loan interest rates. Lesson number 2, you don't need to be rich to start real estate investing. Many of us, myself included, when we first got interested in the world of real estate, we're probably looking at the people who have done commercial deals. We're looking at the people who have hundreds of doors. We're looking at people who have hundreds of millions in real estate, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how can I ever get there? I don't come from a wealthy background. I don't have a ton of money. Well, the thing is, you don't need to come from a wealthy background. You don't need a ton of money because of the fact that with real estate, you can take a highly leveraged position, meaning you're putting little into a deal and getting a ton out on the back end because guess what? You're leveraging other people's money, specifically the bank's money. More specifically, what I mean by that is you don't have to come up with 20 or 25% down. You could do a low down payment option such as an FHA loan. You live in one unit, you rent out the other. You live in one bedroom, you rent out the other. Or there's other ways of real estate investing where you're not putting any money in, such as wholesaling. Now, I personally don't wholesale, so I'm not gonna speak to that. I speak to buy and hold, and even with buy and hold, you can come in at 3.5% down. Heck, if you're gonna do a single family, you could come in at 3% down. And if you're a veteran, you could look at veteran loans that come in at 0% down. Of course, the caveat with little down, you're gonna have a high monthly payment, but of course, as a real estate investor, I'm gonna trust that you're running your numbers so that you are cash flow positive. So even coming in with 0% down, even though your monthly payment is so high, your rental income plus all of the necessary expenses you need to take out are going to cover that. And to really give you an example, when I was looking at real estate, my salary couldn't have been more than, I think at the time, maybe 75 or 78,000. But I was looking at properties in Boston closer to the $1.2 million mark. With that salary, I have no business looking at something in the $1.2 million mark unless it was leveraging a low down payment FHA loan. But the point here is low down payment, don't have to be rich to jump into real estate investing. 3, none of us want to believe it, but things will go wrong. Shit will break. And that's okay. That's why we plan for it. The general rule of thumb is taking 6 to 12% of your monthly gross income from rentals. So let's say you generate $10,000 a month coming in the door. Well, you should take anywhere from $600 to $1,200 and put that into a rainy day fund to save for things like, let's say, new roof, boilers, leaky pipes, broken refrigerators. Ask me how I know about all of these things. But the thing is, when you first start out, you're just kind of razzled dazzled by, oh, here's all the money we're gonna make and here's how much this property is gonna be worth. But you need to, absolutely need to consider that, hey, there's some wear and tear here and things just can go wrong, and you must account for that when you are running your analysis. So I'm throwing on here a quick screenshot of a calculator we use where we set the percentage that we're going to save from our gross monthly income, and that factors in to our total deal analysis, right? Because sometimes, hey, if I'm not gonna save the 6 to 12%, maybe my deal is really good, but I run the risk of having a catastrophic failure and I don't have the funds saved up for it. Well, now what? So my caution here is just expect things are gonna break and be conservative with your estimates. 4, buying a property is less than half the equation. During the period in which you're going and seeing properties, you're putting in offers, you're thinking, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot wait for them to accept this because once they accept this, I'm just gonna kick back and just roll in the dough. Folks, I hate to break it to you. The one thing I learned after my very first property is absolutely not. Once you close the deal, then you are actually starting to put in the actual work, because now it's okay, how do we get this thing up, running, fixed, and rented out? And once it's rented out, how do I make sure my tenants are happy and satisfied and they're gonna keep renewing? And I minimize the amount of turnover, because where you can really hurt you is turnover, right? If you have your unit sitting empty for 1 to 2 months, that's gonna kill your cash flow if your cash flow was maybe only $200 or $300 a house, which isn't that uncommon, especially in an area like the Northeast. So with that said, my caution here is have a plan for what you're gonna do as soon as closing date happens, right? Who are you gonna have to come in to come give you a quote? How aggressively are you gonna try to get things listed? Because I've definitely been guilty where, once things are closed, I'm like, okay, here we go, I'm relaxing a bit, and then it's like, oh my gosh, it's been like 2 months, and we still don't have anyone in there, and now you're just paying into the mortgage yourself when someone else should have been either helping you or fully paying for that mortgage instead. The biggest pointer I have here in terms of getting a fast start once you've closed is talk to your agent, talk to other investors in terms of who they recommend as far as contractors and people you should start talking to once you've actually finished closing on the property. They typically are gonna have a good network for you to tap into, so you're not wasting your time starting from scratch, going on Yelp, yada yada. 5. YouTube DIY videos make you feel really confident. I say that because we spent so much time watching this one channel. It was called Home Renovision, I believe. And he's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal channel. It just makes DIY seem so approachable. And it definitely helped us out with some of the small projects we had. But there was one project we had where we just kind of got in our heads like, oh, the attic in the very first building we bought is a little bit messed up. We should tear down the entire thing, and then we should just put drywall ourselves. The guy was like, oh yeah, just put drywall on your head, and then you just put it up on the ceiling, and you just drill it in, you're good to go. And I'm like, oh, this guy looks like he's 50, done. I ended up buying 28 sheets of drywall, which, by the way, they're not light. So I had to rent a U-Haul truck. I had to ask my friend Kevin to help me move the drywall into the building. And keep in mind, this is the first floor of a 3-story building. And it was after we had moved 28 sheets of drywall that I realized, yeah, I don't think I can actually manage this. YouTube DIY had me feeling confident. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna knock this wall down, put up this drywall by myself, hold it with my head. That's not it. Really, really manage and think about what it is that you can manage and what you might need to actually hire out, or if you just need a second opinion on what you actually need to do. And the irony is not lost on me. Here I am on a YouTube video telling folks about real estate investing, and maybe it sounds easy to some, maybe it doesn't, and I'm saying, oh, actually some of the DIY stuff is not as easy as it seems. But regardless, I do wanna make that point very clear, in that you don't want to get too overconfident in your DIY. Yes, when you're starting out, you're gonna do some stuff, but there's some stuff that maybe it's not quite it for you. Maybe you're gonna need some professional help or at least assistance and advice. Number 6, real estate truly, in my opinion, in my heart of heart, and I now believe is the common person's path to wealth creation. And to give you an example, the very first property we bought in 2020, fast forward it, we bought it for $600,000. It reappraised a year later for $752,000. That's $152,000 of value/equity I unlocked in 1 year. Now, is that gonna happen every single year? No, absolutely not. But the point I'm trying to make is it's an incredibly accelerated way to obtain wealth by taking a highly leveraged position where you're putting in very little, but the payoff can be very great because again, you're leveraging other people's money, namely in the form of the bank providing you the loan. And the only thing that I wish I had done was jump in sooner. And number 7, and to the earlier point, I wish I got started earlier. It's not lost on me that currently we are at a really funky period in the housing market, right? We just went through 2020 where everything shut down, and then all of a sudden 21, 22, prices are through the roof, and now we're in 23 going to 24 where mortgage interest rates are crazy high, but yet there's still a housing shortage. And every single month, every single year, people are saying, is now the boom, is now the bust, is now the boom, is now the bust. Folks, in 2020, remember how the world was ending? Bought our first property. 21, bought the second. 22, bought the third. Yet, if you had gone back in that period, all people were saying was, nope, it's too expensive. Nope, you can't do it. No, you should wait out for it. Now, I'm not saying that you should be buying this year or you should be buying next year. But what I'm saying though is the best time to start was probably yesterday. The second best time is today. The caveat that I'm gonna put on that though is running your numbers and being confident as an investor. Personally, Viv and I, we've been very lucky in that she built out a really good calculator for us to take a look at, hey, does this property make sense? And if yes, we jump in. If no, we jump out. But regardless, what I wanna say is when it comes to real estate or when it comes to investing in general, as long as this is something you're interested in, as long as this is something that you truly have a passion for, or at least understand that this is a way you can truly accelerate your wealth, then I personally don't have any hesitations, whether it's jumping in today, tomorrow, or a year from now, given that you're confident in your numbers and your underwriting. And so that's it, folks. These are the 7 things that I wish I knew about real estate investing before I got started in my 20s. If you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. What I'm thinking of doing is starting a small series. Maybe we'll take a look at some properties around the country. So if you have areas in the country, whether it's East Coast, West Coast, a particular city, maybe I'll pull out a couple of areas where we're going to go ahead and run some analysis just so you guys have an understanding of how it is I go about evaluating properties, and hopefully that might help you. Until then though, I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.